Hey guys, Ben here, and for CKSS Reads, my book was Generals Die in Bed by Charles Yale Harrison. Now, this is the story of an unnamed Canadian soldier that served in World War I, and it's really a story of suffering. This guy goes through so much trouble, so many problems. One by one, his friends are picked off in the trenches, and he has to do terrible, terrible things in order to survive. But I've got to convince you guys that this deserves to win CKSS Reads, which I truly believe it does. Now, one of the best features of this novel is how brief and apt its descriptions of wartime are. Now, Charles Yale Harrison was a soldier, and so that makes this very interesting from an autobiographical lens, because he has a lot of guts to write what he wrote about in this book. In the book, he writes about the Canadian soldiers looting and killing unarmed Germans. They are surrendering, but the Canadians still gun them down. Now, we often hear in Canada, when we learn about World War I, learn about war crimes done by the Germans, but rarely do we learn about crimes committed on our side. And that makes this novel so interesting to read. There are many more instances of historical detail in the novel, especially in regard to religious iconography. For example, the crucified soldier makes an appearance in the book. Now, not the soldier himself. Later on in the novel, our main soldier encounters another veteran soldier who claims to have encountered the crucified soldier. Now, if you don't remember, we talked about the crucified soldier when we were talking about religious iconography before, and how it was used to inspire troops to action, to enlist in the army. And in the book, we hear it almost like a second-hand account of this rumor, and that makes it all the more real, just like knowing that you learned about that and now it's here in the book. Now, I could talk for days about each and every one of the 12 chapters, because each one is just so packed with imagery, content. But I want to single out chapter 5, On Rest Again, for its amazing symbolism. The soldiers are away from the front lines in this chapter on break, and they are bathing in the river. And they are boys, men. They aren't soldiers back here. They don't have to kill anyone back here. And they are just having fun. But then a dead Frenchman slowly floats down the river. An ominous reminder that this is never gonna escape. You can't escape from this. Everywhere you go in your life, you're gonna have these dead men resting on your consciousness. And another amazing use of symbolism throughout the entire book is how the soldier remains unnamed, an allusion to the unnamed soldier, who we never end up knowing the name of. There's thousands of unnamed soldiers, and this becomes almost a story, a tribute to all of them as well. So why should a 1920s World War I novel win CKSS Reads in 2017? Well, it's probably the most well-written and apt World War I novel written by a Canadian. It's short and it's poignant, which means anybody can read this. It's a super manageable length, but within every page is emotional and engrossing reading. Often I just had to put the book down after reading certain passages just to soak in the messages, because they're that strong. I'll conclude with a favorite passage of mine, when our main character is on break in London with a friend, or a lady friend if you want to interpret it like that, describing the time he murdered a soldier. I laugh and relate that the murder took place in a trench, and that my enemy wore a pot-shaped helmet. Her face glows with a smile. You silly boy, I thought you had really murdered someone.